What the hell is up, everybody? Louie back here again after a riveting UFC 280 pay-per-view. Didn't go quite the way I expected, but came out profitable. Belal Muhammad, that was the biggest hitter on there. I kind of called it from a mile away, but I did not call the standing TKO. So if you had Belal Muhammad by TKO, congrats. Jan and Sean O'Malley. I was thinking about Sean O'Malley, should have stuck with it. And then Dariush and Gamrot. Dariush was plus 160, and then the day of the fight went to plus 220, so I should have stuck with my gut on that one. And then, you know, unfortunately, Islam just kind of rolled through Charles Oliveira. He put up a good fight, but he's Islam Makhachev, so it is what it is. But, you know, did all right. Saw some fun fights, hit some underdogs. But we're back to the Apex, UFC Vegas 63. You got Calvin Kattar taking on Arnold Almighty Allen at 145 pounds, men's featherweight. This fight has serious title implications. Not exactly sure what the winner's going to get next because you got Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez maybe fighting for an interim title, but Yair said he just wants to wait. So who knows what's going on, but it should be a fun card. And coming off of the heels of 280, you know, obviously it's hard to top that, but I think this is a nice little card here. And you also got Josh FREMD making his second UFC appearance. The guy from Westmoreland County taking on Tresean Gore. And then you got Dustin Jacoby taking on Khalil Rountree. I mean, sign me up if you like violence. All right, let's get right into it here. First fight of the night at, let's see, 135 pounds. Christian Rodriguez taking on Joshua Weems at bantamweight. Joshua Weems coming in on short notice. Rodriguez took on Jonathan Pierce his last fight. In the first round, he loops some hooks in the pocket, but then he gets doubled, but then he gets back up and he's in the clinch position. But then he pulls a tight guillotine off of a low single attempt, but he gives up his back, getting a scramble. Then in the second round, he lands some 1-2s at range and he's able to stuff the double leg attempt. But then he presses with some combinations, but he walks right into the double, so not great IQ. But then he gets back to his feet and he whizzer kicks him, goes for the arm bar, but then he gives up his back in that transition. So submission over position for him. And then in the third round, he lands an overhand right at range, lands some 1-2s, but then when he gets rushed, he stuffs with the single, and he's able to get around the back, and he slides off his back, but he's able to regain, scramble a little bit, and get his back again. And then back on the feet, he lands some elbows to the body, presses forward with the 1-2, but then he gets doubled and gives up his back toward the end. But, you know, whatever. And then Joshua Weems took on Mo Miller his last fight. Joshua Weems, he's making his UFC debut on short notice. In the first round, he lands a head kick immediately, but then he eats an uppercut, and then he gets doubled off of the fence. But then he skirts the fence, and he's able to slip the straight shots, kind of look and see what's coming at him. But then he throws a 1-2, and then he shoots the double leg, but it gets stuffed. Then in the second round, he gets pressed with some hooks, and then he gets taken out with the single off the fence. But then he's able to work back up to his feet, defend some shots off the fence, and then he's able to get like a reverse triangle position in a scramble. Also kind of attack the Kimura, kind of just neutralizes more than anything. Wasn't really super tight. Depends how the judges look at it. Then in the third round, he tries the body lock, but then he's able to get the double leg off the fence. He's able to land inside control. But then back on the feet, he gets clinched to the fence, but he pulls the guillotine out of nowhere kind of and just gets a submission. So the dude's got some tricky guillotines. Josh Weems plus 310, Christian Rodriguez minus 360. Don't love the price, but I don't know, man. Christian Rodriguez, Josh Weems just making his UFC debut short notice. Crazy shit like that happens, but first fight of the night, plus 300. How often does that happen? I don't know, but it's not often. I'm just going to go with Christian Rodriguez here. I think he's going to be able to push the pace. The striking is going to be a little too much for Weems, especially in the second and the third round if it gets that far. And I think he's going to hit him with some big shots, maybe even put him away. So, but I'm not super confident, so I'm not going to play props. Second fight of the night. This is a fun one, man. Flyweight, 125 pounds. Cody Durden taking on Carlos Mota. Mota, short notice step up as well. In the first round, Durden took on JB Bice his last fight. Not much of a fight. First round, he rocks him with the right over the top of his jab. Then he lands a jab. Then he goes for the clinch. Then he lands an overhand. And then he pops some jabs. And then he drops him with some hooks. Just kind of a flurry. Just kind of swarms him. And he gets around his back, lands some ground and pound, and just gets TKO. And unfortunately, JB Bice has chin issues, but before that, he took on Muhammad Mokaev. We all know how that went. Not great for him. Just got mauled. But then before that, he took on Arichi Lang. And you got 3 rounds of data from that. In the first round, he gets a double from space, and he's able to close the distance. Gets the double off the fence. But then he's able to keep the lock around his waist, and he doesn't let him go anywhere. So I like seeing that. And then he eats some short shots, is kind of standing in the pocket, kind of getting a little tired. Then the second round, he lands some jabs at range off the fence. But then he stands at range and he rushes with the 1-2, and then he'll go for the clinch. But then he misses a knee and just kind of falls on his back. Not great, but whatever. But then he lands some jabs and an uppercut against the fence. But then he eats some right crosses. Whenever he's throwing his jabs, gets countered. Then in the third round, he gets a single. He shoots for it. He tries to finish it on the mat, but he can't quite finish it. But then he comes up and he's able to finish a double leg off of that. So you like seeing that chain wrestling from him. But then he backs up and he circles, lands some jabs, but then he clinches and then he shoots on the leg, just kind of trying to kill time. And cardio falls off a little bit, but look okay. Carlos MOTA took on Rivian Abuyev his last fight. In the first round, he lands some body kicks. And then he presses with some jabs and some body hooks. And then he drops him with a jab. And then he stuffs his shot, lands some nasty hooks to the body, rips the body. And then he lands another jab to the body. And then he lands a lead left hook to the head and then a knockout. So not much to that one. And again, coming on short notice, Carlos MOTA minus 165. Cody Durden plus 140. Actually, he might not be. I think, yeah, he is coming on short notice. I forget. Sorry if I got confused, but... Cody Durden plus 140. I'm going to go with Cody Durden here, man. Yeah, sorry. Carlos MOTA is not coming on short notice. It kind of was like change of opponent, but not like super late notice. Like I got this one's confused. But anyway, Cody Durden plus 140. I'm going to go with Cody Durden, man. He's had several fights in the UFC. He's good at times. Great wrestling. You know, Carlos MOTA might light him up with something early on, but I think Durden, you know, he gets kind of tired, but he's also able to wrestle and like lay and pray if he has to. So, you know, I'm gonna go with him plus 140, no brainer. Under 2.5, it's a flyweight fight, minus 145, hit that one. But I'm gonna stick with Cody Durden here, man. I think he can get it done. He's really gritty, he's tough, might get tired, but he doesn't quit. Okay, all right, third fight of the night, 145 pounds, men's featherweight. You got Chase Hooper taking on Steve Garcia. I mean, who doesn't love watching Chase Hooper fight? Chase Hooper took on Felipe Colares his last fight. In the first round, he lands a step in left, but he gets clinched. But then he gets wizard kicked, but he's able to keep the clinch, stays against the fence, and then he catches the kick, and he gets on his back, but then he gets reversed. But it's okay because he scrambles around and he's okay being on his back. Then he lands a 1-2, gets the body lock, but then he gets wizard kicked, but he's able to scramble, gets on top, and then he's able to transition to his back from there. Then he gets a body lock trip, and he lands some elbows, some nice ground and pound, and then goes from the darts from top position, so a decent way to end the round. Then in the second round, he presses with some straights, and then he gets a body lock to his back, and he pulls the arm bar. Can't quite get it, but decent threat from him. But then he pulls guard, and he utilizing the butterfly guard, so he's not just sitting on his back, obviously. But then he passes with some leg lock, passes with the lock. He has his legs locked around his arm, and then he walks his feet against the cage, and he takes his back, and then he's able to pull the arm bar again. And then he goes for the heel hook, but he doesn't get the heel hook, but he uses it to take his back, and then lands some nasty ground and pound from the back. So, you know, you start seeing some more striking at Chase Hooper, not just strictly going for submissions, throwing some ground and pound in there. So possibility of TKO or just soften the guy up, open up another submission. Then in the third round, he lands a 1-2, and then he gets the body lock, but then he breaks it, and then he lands a hook flurry, and then he shoots a double leg off of there. And then he lands an elbow and half guard when he gets his back into full mount. And then a couple rear naked choke attempts, and then just some nasty TKO ground and pound from the back. Couldn't get the rear naked choke, doesn't blow his arms out, just goes for the TKO. So you like seeing that IQ out of a young fighter like that. I thought it was a great wrinkle to his game he showed. Steve Garcia took on Jaisier Machete his last fight. In the first round, he eats a right cross and a jump knee, but he counters it with the right hook very nicely. But then he gets dropped with the right cross when he's rushing in, but he's able to get the clinch. Sorry, he's rushing it, but he's able to get the clinch off of there. And then he throws a lunge left hook, but then he gets KO'd with the right cross, just kind of overextends himself there. So, you know, he's kind of a do-or-die type of fighter. And then before that, he took on Charlie Ontiveros. In the first round, he walks right into an axe kick, and he gets dropped right away. But then he slips the kick, and then he lands a counter left hook, but he walks into some check hooks, but then he gets dropped, and then he gets dropped from there, but then he has the single, and then he's able to complete the double leg off the fence, lands some ground and pound, puts his knee on his wrist, really keeps him down there, and makes him pay. Then he's in like the north-south position, doesn't really do much there, but still. You just like seeing little wrinkles like that, And, you know, anything to trap a guy's arm to get some extra shots in. Then in the second round, he lands a leg kick and then an overhand left, but then he gets dropped with a short hook, but then he's able to get the double leg attempt. He's able to finish the double leg, get into full mount, land some nasty elbows, TKO from ground and pound. So, you like seeing that? Steve Garcia plus 245, Chase Hooper minus 295. It's a tough one here, but my biggest thing is I think Steve Garcia is a do-or-die fighter. He's a first-round fighter. I think he's going to rush Chase Hooper, and I think Chase Hooper is just going to take his back. I think he might be able to duck under him and get around his back and make him pay early on. Steve Garcia might clip Chase Hooper with something, but we've seen in previous fights Chase Hooper has a relatively good chin, especially in Alex Caceres' fight. He can take some shots, and he knows he doesn't want to be there. He's not going to stay there and take shots. Steve Garcia's do or die. If it gets after the first round, this is Chase Hooper all day. Price is a little steep, but I like Chase Hooper. I think he showed massive improvements in the last fight. I'm going to go with him. Chase Hooper by KO plus 450 or sub plus 140. I'll let you decide. But the inside the distance was still like negative money, so I don't really like that one. But my pick here, Chase Hooper, baby. Give me some M&Ms. All right, on to the feature fight of the prelims. 185 pounds, men's middleweight. You got Joseph Ugly Man Holmes, great name, taking on Jun Young Park, the Iron Turtle. Let's go, man. I'm excited. This should be slop, but decent level slop, you know. But Joseph Holmes took on Alan Madovsky his last fight in the first round. Backs up, pumps some jabs, but then he backs out of the overhands. He lands a step in knee, and then he drops him, takes his back, ground and pound, rear naked choke. Boom, easy breezy. Easy breezy. Okay. Before that, he took on Jamie Pickett, though. Not so great for him. This was his UFC debut. In the first round, he pressed him with some jabs and a right cross and then some body kicks. But he backs out of the jab range. Then he clinches. He's able to stop the double leg, but then he gets clinched up against the fence. Then he bites on the front kick, and then he gets a blast doubled off of the fence. And then in the second round, he defends a single, but then he eats some hooks on the break. He lands a 1-2 and clinches, but whenever he gets rushed, he'll just kind of go for the clinch and try to like duck under. Then he gets a single to the clinch against the fence, but can't do much with it. Then in the third round, he gets clinched immediately, and he just like stopped going forward this round. He throws a 1-2, but then he gets clinched off of there, and then he just kind of skirts around the fence, eats some head kicks. Didn't have the killer instinct I was looking for there. And then Jun Young Park took on Eric, your boy Honors, his last fight. It's a fun little scrap, technical scrap. In the first round, he eats some hooks. He eats a hook when he gets pressed to the fence with the single when he tries to go for the guillotine. Doesn't really have it, but Eric Honors is being cautious as well. And then he gets pressed, and then he lands a 1-2, and then he just kind of circles out of range, but then he gets taken down off of his guillotine attempt. Then in the second round, he gets doubled off the fence, but he's able to stand right back up, like you've seen that. But then he eats some 1-2s at range whenever he's coming in. Then he lands a right hook, and then he kind of circles away. Then he gets backed up and clinched, and then he gets knee picked, but then he slides him off of his back. So decent scramble ability. And then in the third round, he gets off the fence and he pressures more, but then he gets shot on a lot. That's what Eric will do. Just kind of, he'll throw a 1-2 and then just like shoot a single on him. But he lands some 1-2s in the pockets, but then he eats a straight and then a left, and then he gets shot on. Happens a lot. But then he lands some 1-2s and uppercut in the pocket at the end where both kind of just thrown down. But Jun Young Park minus 225. Joseph Holmes plus 190. I'm going to go with Jun Young Park. Don't love the price. Joseph Holmes hasn't shown me any reason to bet him over Jun Young Park. Jun Young Park had a relatively competitive fight with Gregory Rodriguez. It was an absolute slugfest, and his chin just failed first. And I think his wrestling is going to be a big problem for Joseph Holmes. Joseph Holmes might be able to catch him with something early, but I think as the fight goes on, Park's just going to keep that pace. He's going to clinch him. He's going to get doubles, singles off the fence. And Joseph Holmes is just going to be in deep water. So I'm going to go Jun Young Park. Price is a little steep, but it's the Iron Turtle, you know? So, all right. The co-main event of the prelims at 285 pounds, men's heavyweight. You got Andre the Pitbull Arlovsky taking on Marcos Rogerio de Lima. You know, this is the test to get into heavyweight. Like, if you want to beat him like a top 15, you got to get through Andre Arlovsky. If you want to beat somebody heavyweight, you got to beat Arlovsky. So let's see if he can do it. Arlovsky took on Jay Collier his last fight. Very close fight. In the first round, he lands an overhand, but he gets clinched to the fence. And then he gets pressed with an overhand and a hook inside the pocket. But he gets pressed, but then he eats some left hooks. But he circles the fence, kind of evades. But then he waits to get pressed to throw some short hooks and an overhand. So he'll just kind of have Jake come into him, then he'll start throwing. Then in the second round, he lands an overhand and an uppercut in the pocket, but eats some jabs and he backs up. But then he lands a right hook and a jab, but then he eats a jab and just kind of circles away. Doesn't want to take too many shots. Then he gets pressed in the pocket with the overhand right and then a straight right at range. Then he gets clinched and then drugged down from there. Jay Cutler's a big guy. But then he throws a back fist and he lands a 1-2 on the fence right at the end of the round. Kind of has a big moment, and all these rounds were pretty close. Then in the third round, he gets pressed with the jab, then he circles, then he lands some jabs, but he eats some 1-2s while he's circling, but he eats an overhand in the pocket, and then he goes for the clinch immediately. Then he eats an overhand, and he gets doubled right at the end, like maybe 10 seconds left. So I don't know. It was up in the air, but Andrei Arlovsky doesn't lose split decisions. So that's how that goes. Marcos Rogério de Lima took on Bulgoy Ivanov his last fight. In the first round, he jabs at range, but he's too short, but he lands some step-in hooks. Then he lands a lunge 1-2, but he misses, and he lands a throws lunge 1-2, but he misses, lands an uppercut, and then kind of lands a winged hook, but they're kind of wild, kind of sloppy. Then he lands some odd hooks whenever he gets pressed. Then in the second round, he gets pressed with some hooks, and he gets clinched to the fence, but then he stuffs a single, but he eats a short left, and then he gets clinched after that. But then he just kind of swings wild, and he eats a straight left. But then he lands a check left, but then he eats a right cross off of that. And then in the third round, he eats some hooks on the fence, but then he's able to land some counters, and he circles off, and then he clinches him to the fence. And then, he gets clinched, just kind of standing there. But then he lands an overhand from range, and he gets a double off the fence right at the end there. Don't know how much it did for him, but you know, kind of a close, sloppy heavyweight fight, lower level. That's kind of how the thing goes. Lots of clinching and lots of point scoring. So. But technically lost that fight. I thought you could have gave it to him. I thought he landed some big shots, but, you know, whatever. Marcos is minus 245. Andrei Arlovsky plus 205. I'm going with Andrei Arlovsky straight up. You know, 2 low-level heavyweight fights. The rule is still low-level heavyweights. You bet the underdog, especially when Andrei Arlovsky, he wins these close split decisions. That's what he does. Yes, the fights have been getting closer and closer, but it doesn't matter. Marcos Rogério de Lima, I think Arlovsky's going to be able to make a miss. He might get cracked a couple times, but he's going to circle the fence, and he's not going to get hit for the entire fight. And I think Marcos is going to do something stupid, and I think whenever he's rushing, Pitbull will be able to crack him a couple times, and Pitbull will be able to do just enough to win, and maybe there's a little bit of bias with the judges, who knows. But at this price, I'm not going to bet minus 245 on Marcos Rogério. So, Andre Pitbull. Let's see what happens. Should be a slow burn heavyweight slot fest, and I'm here for it. The main event of the prelims at 185 pounds, men's middleweight, you got Phil Hawes. I think his name is Megatron Hawes, taking on Roman, the Caucasian Dolidze. That's his name, okay? Phil Hawes, he took on Duran Win his last fight. I think it's the best he's looked to date. In the first round, he lands some jabs and 1-2s at range, and he drops him with the elbow off of Duran's punch when he kind of lunges in a little too much. Then he drops him with left hook and then a straight right. Then he lands a counter elbow and then a hook flurry. Then in the second round, he lands a left head kick at range, lands some face kicks, and he backs him up. And he moves out of the range of the overhands. You can kind of see Duran coming from a mile away. Duran's really short for that weight class. Then he eats a right hook in the pocket, but then he's able to land a counter elbow. And then he lands an elbow, and he's able to get the body lock trip takedown on Duran Win. Yes, who was on the Olympic circuit. But then he's back on the feet. He stalks with some 1-2s and the elbows, and he'll just kind of circle out, just kind of stick a move in here a little bit. And then he's able to get the tie plum. Then he lands some knees to the head, and then some head kicks, and then an elbow flurry, and then a TKO. Standing TKO, ref saw enough. Duran Win, very tough, but he just took way too much damage. And Phil Hawes just pieced him up, barely got touched, was barely in trouble. Looked amazing. And then Roman Dolidze, his last fight, took on Kyle Dawkins. Quick one, weird one. In the first round, he drops him with a left hook from the clinch, and then he gets his back standing, brings his knee all the way up to his head, and gets a TKO. So, I don't know. Nobody in the world saw that one coming, so, you know, whatever. That's MMA. But before that, he took on Laureano Staropoli. Very boring fight. Didn't do much of anything. In the first round, he eats a 1-2 to the body and then some leg kicks, but he's able to get the blast double whenever he gets pressed. And then he stays around his back standing, keeps that body lock, barely does anything, maybe 1 or 2 mat returns. Second round, he ducks the jab, gets the double again, but then he crowds him whenever he's throwing overhands, and he lands an uppercut, but then he eats uppercut in return when he's standing at range, but then he's able to get the double leg takedown off the fence. He gets whizzer kicked, but then he goes for a leg lock, and then he's able to use that to get to his feet. I like seeing that. Then he clinches off whenever he's throwing a hook. And then in the third round, he ducks the straight, and then he gets around his back standing. Doesn't do anything. barely. And, so that's him. So Roman Dolidze also has power, I guess. I don't know what to make of this. Roman Dolidze plus 150, Phil Hawes minus 175. I'm going to go Phil Hawes. I think Phil Hawes, he's a decent wrestler. Dolidze is a wrestler, but he's mostly a clinch guy. He'll just stay in the clinch. He might have a blast double. I think Phil Hawes will be wise to it. Phil Hawes striking looked amazing. I think he'll be able to piece him up at range, land some front kicks, some face kicks, whatever. Keeps to the body, keep him off of him. I think, and then maybe Dolidze gets sloppy, gets desperate, and Phil Hawes will be able to take advantage and maybe get on top of him or get around his back. I'm going to go with Phil Hawes. He looked like a monster his last fight. I'm here for it. All right, the first fight of the main card, 205 pounds, men's light heavyweight. I hope you like violence. Dustin Jacoby taking on Khalil Rountree. I mean, let's go, dude. This is like kind of an important fight. Dustin Jacoby, I think, is like right on the border of 15 or might be 15. And Khalil Rountree, he looked amazing earlier on, was on a skid where he didn't do much in his fights and just lost due to inactivity. So, big redemption from him. He's been on a 2-fight murder streak. So, I'm excited, man. These dudes are going to bang, and I'm here for it. Can't wait for it. Dustin Jacoby took on Dalton Jung his last fight. In the first round, he skirts the fence, backs out of the jab range, but he eats a switch knee and a right cross off of his jab, and then he eats an overhand right, but then he lands an overhand right of his own and just kind of slips and throws it and gets KO. So, good movement from him. Kind of takes his time, so does Khalil. And then Khalil Rountree took on Carl Roberson his last fight. In the first round, has a very low stance, but he eats some leg kicks, but he's steady stalking forward. Then he lands a 1-2 off of a jump knee, and then he feints some jabs, and then a 1-2 at range, but then he catches the kick, and then he comes forward, lands a 1-2. Second round, like a bat out of hell, drops him with a lead right hook, and then just body kicks from the ground, like stomps him, and then just a hook flurry TKO. So, very violent. And he went 0 to 100, so that's what he does. Khalil Rountree plus 145, Dustin Jacoby minus 170. I'm going to go with Khalil here. I know people are thinking like he might come out and not do anything. Which Khalil are we going to get? Well, 2 murders. I'm going to say we get the Khalil that comes to murder somebody. And Dustin Jacoby just, he stays busy, but I just don't know if he's going to hurt Khalil. I think Khalil's going to march forward. I think he'll be able to walk him down. Khalil's got some nasty-ass kicks as well. It should be a fun fight. I think it's relatively close, maybe a little closer than the line should say. I think it should be like a coin flip. But I'm going to go with the underdog here, Khalil Rountree. Let's see. Maybe this is the new Khalil. Let's see what happens. Second fight of the main card at 185 pounds, men's middleweight. You got Josh FREMD taking on Tresean Gore. Josh FREMD from Westmoreland County, my area. Tough PA wrestling kid, so, he's tough. And before his first fight in the UFC, took it on short notice, like a week notice, against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who's on a hot streak right now, and fought a hell of a fight. In the first round, he lands a 1-2 leg kick, and then a leg kick, and he defends a double, but then he lands a knee to the head in the tie clinch, but then he gets taken down with the single, and he gives up his back, but he's able to defend the guillotines from Fluffy, and that's like his signature. But then he eats some hooks in the clinch, but he lands a right over the top, but then he gets taken down with a double toward the end. Then the second round, he defends the clinch, but then he gets wrist dragged, and he gets doubled off the fence. But then he's able to shuck him off his back. So, he's always looking to get him off and not trying to compromise in those vulnerable positions. Like, he doesn't want him to have his back at all. And then he defends the choke, and then he gets a single on his knees, single to Peterson. Then he's able to get into side control, tries the guillotine from top, doesn't get it, but went for it. Then he gets his back, and he keeps him down with a double, like reshoots on the double, keeps him down. And then he lands a straight, back on the feet, lands a straight right at range. But then he gets caught in guillotine. He's like clinching and just pushes his head right in between his armpit. Bad IQ moment, but what happens. He's pretty tired as a dog fight. But then he eats some ground and pound. And I think he gave up that round right there. But if he wouldn't have done that, gave up that 20 seconds there, I think he had that round. But whatever. Then in the third round, he gets doubled right away, gives up his back. He's pretty tired at this point. But then he shucks him off his back, and he turns into him. But he can't get on top, can't maintain position, and he gives up his back with one hook, and Hernandez just kind of rides it out. But, put up a hell of a fight, 1 week notice against Fluffy Hernandez, tough UFC veteran, looked great. Did Westmoreland County proud. Then Tresean Gore took on Cody Brundage his last fight. In the first round, he gets doubled off the fence and gives up his back. But back on the feet, he lands a jab, but then he eats an overhand off of his jab, and then he misses with a big windmill, but he pressures forward and he starts pumping his jabs, but then he gets dropped with a straight right off of a step-in leg kick, and then he gets TKO'd from full mount. So, you know, just kind of getting overzealous and just not protecting himself, basically. Tresean Gore plus 135, Josh FREMD minus 155. A little interesting line here. I thought FREMD would be the underdog. But Tresean Gore just looking like maybe it's too much too soon, you know, for the UFC. He was on the Ultimate Fighter. It seemed like they kind of needed guys. But I'm going to go with FREMD here. I just really like what I saw out of him in the first fight, taking everything into account. Tresean Gore's on a 2-fight skid. A lot of pressure for him to the third fight. Can't lose 3 in a row. Also, I think FREMD's pressure is going to be great. Tresean Gore can wrestle. He was taking Brian Battle down, but I think FREMD is a better wrestler. He has better scrambles. Even if Tresean Gore does get him down, like he was able to get in on the single from his knees and reverse Anthony Hernandez. I think he's going to be able to reverse him. Now Tresean's going to be really dangerous in the first round, but I think FREMD will be able to navigate that, and I think he'll be able to establish a jab, fight as a long fighter, and I think he'll be able to control him, grind him out. Maybe get a knockout, who knows? Maybe he'll just grind Tresean out and get like a TKO on the ground, but line's not too bad. I'm going to go with Josh FREMD, tough PA wrestler. Okay. The feature fight of the main card, 285 pounds, men's heavyweight, Waldo Cortez-Acosta, the Salsa Boy, coming off the Contender Series, taking on Jared the Mountain Vanderaa. Vanderaa, 4 losses in a row, so it's do or die for him. And Waldo wants to make a big impression. So Waldo took on Danilo Suzart in the Contender Series. In the first round, he backs up, but he pumps his jabs. He gets pressured to the fence, and he eats over the hand, but he's able to return the right cross. And then he jabs at range, and then he throws a cross whenever the distance gets closed on him. But then he slips the hook, and he lands a straight right, and then a hook flurry. And then he clinches, lands some nasty elbows. And then back at space, he drops him with the overhand right, and then he gets the clinch, and then a TKO around the back from ground and pound. Gets around his back, just pop, pop, pop. Just beating the shit out of him. So you like to see that out of a heavyweight, but it was in the first round, so you know. But then Jared Vanderaa took on Chase Sherman. His last fight, hell of a slugfest. In the first round, he walks into a right hook, but then he lands a lead left hook. He eats a 1-2 off of his leg kick, but then he misses some jabs and hooks. But he lands a counter right hook off of a looping hook from Sherman. But then he eats a right cross, just kind of standing at range. And then in the second round, he backs up, but he backs up and he eats a 1-2, and he slips the straight, and he's able to land some hooks, and then he loops a hook, but then he eats a counter hook from Sherman, just kind of going at it at this point. And then in the third round, all bets are off. He lands some jabs at range, then he lands a step in right, and then he circles, and he faces them, trying to square up with them, but then he lands an overhand right off of his hook, and then moves, just kind of keeps the movement going, but then he eats a 1-2 off of his hooks, so they get countered, but then he eats a right cross, and he clinches, and then he eats another hook, and then he eats another right cross whenever he goes for the clinch, and then he eats just a barrage of punches from Chase Sherman and gets TKO'd kind of out of nowhere. So just getting a little sloppy there. I thought he was winning the fight. I thought it was close anyway. So, and it looked like he was completely exhausted. So I don't know. Jared Vanderaa plus 165, Waldo minus 195. Doesn't matter. Low level heavyweights plus the Dana White Contender Series curse. Shout out to Clint. And those are 2 whammies going against you. Jared Vanderaa plus money, low-level heavyweights. He's a veteran. Waldo making his UFC debut. Now on the technical side, I guess I think Waldo kind of gassed himself out. I think Vanderaa is going to be able to stick and move. I think Acosta is going to throw those big hooks, those big looping punches, and I think he's going to get tired. And Vanderaa was able to scramble at least a little bit with Alexei Oleinik on the ground, so he might be able to, maybe Acosta just like overextend himself. Jared's able to take his back, mat return him, get to submission goings, who knows. But low-level heavyweights, Jared Vanderaa, baby. All right, the co-main event of the evening at 170 pounds, men's welterweight. Got Tim Dirty Bird Means taking on Max Payne Griffin. Both guys coming off a loss. Both guys lost to Neil Magny. So, should be interesting. But, you know, both guys coming off a loss, obviously. But neither guy's ranked. But, should this be a co-main event? No. But, could be a fun fight. I think somebody might get knocked out. Also, like, this is each guy's, like, restart here. Like, from this point forward, their career is going to go forward, and they're going to make a run here. So, but one guy's getting left behind. So, kind of an important match in that sense. Tim Means took on Kevin Holland his last fight. In the first round, he gets a double to the fence, but he's not able to finish it. But then he lands a lunge left cross on him. But then he gets blitzed and eats a knee from Kevin. But then he gets taken down off of throwing a knee. And gets the takedown off of Kevin's knee. But he can't hold him down, but then eats some hooks on the break. And then he gets the double to the fence, and he just kind of holds him there. But it doesn't really do a whole lot. But then he eats a combo off of his leg kick. And then he throws a 2-1-2, and then he walks into a head kick and a jab from Kevin, but then he eats some straight rights, and he gets pushed back toward the end of the round. Then the second round, he gets clinched, and he gets pressed back to the fence. He lands his 1-2, he throws it, but it's too short, can't hit him. Then he walks into a straight right, and then he gets rocked from there, and then Kevin Holland just pulls a darce on him and submits him. So, you know, Kevin Holland's a monster, so it looked okay. Then Max Griffin took on Neil Magny his last fight. I was at that fight. It was awesome. In the first round, he lands a right hook off of Neil's jab. Then he lands a lunge straight right from range, and then he starts moving in and out. And then he circles, and then he drops him with the straight right. Just bow whenever Neil's coming in on him. And, you know, hurt him really bad. So that was a really good moment for him, and not too many people hurt Neil Magny like that. In the second round, he circles with some body kicks and some 1-2s, but then he eats some jabs when he's circling. Then he lands some step-in overhands, an uppercut, and a 1-2 inside the pocket. But then he lands some loop hooks, but then he eats some straight shots to return. They're a little too loopy. Then he eats an overhand, but then he's able to defend the single leg against the fence. Big moment for him. Then in the third round, he's able to defend the single on the fence again, but he gives up his back standing, and then Neil does that thing where he gets his left leg hook in, and then he gets drugged down from there, and just kind of concedes the third round. So, kind of. But, you know, close fight, competitive fight, had his moments, really close to finishing him. Max Griffin, minus 190. Tim Means, plus 160. I don't like the price, but I'm going to go with Max Payne Griffin. Number one, Tim Means got hurt really bad his last fight, and Max Payne can crack, so there's that. And Tim's going to try to wrestle with them. Max showed pretty good takedown defense. I mean, Neil Magny just clinches everybody up and gets them to the mat eventually. It took him to the third round for Neil to do that to him, so I think he'll be okay in that sense. I see this fight kind of ending early, so I think Max will be able to catch him with something and hurt him. And, you know, whenever Tim's coming in, I think he'll be able to crack him with the right cross, something like that. Big shot. But I'm going to go with Max Payne Griffin. You know, why not? Okay, the main event of the evening at 145 pounds, men's featherweight. You got Calvin, the Boston finisher Kattar. I think that's his nickname. Taking on Arnold Almighty Allen. This is actually a huge matchup. Arnold Allen wants to prove himself in his division. I think he's on a 10-fight win streak, but he hasn't had that marquee win. He had that big win over Dan Hooker, but Dan Hooker dropped from 155 to 145, and he knocked him out, so you could say that's the reason. And he's been injured and hasn't been able to fight twice in 1 year in a long time. And then Calvin Kattar just lost that very close controversial split decision to Josh Emmett, and he wants another crack at the title. And this is his chance to prove, like, hey, I'm still here, and I want to make a run for this belt. So whoever wins this is going to be in the title conversation somehow. Like I said, I don't know if they're fighting for interim or what they're doing, but Volkanovski is going up to fight Islam. So we'll see how that plays out. But each guy wants to win this fight. You want to win this fight to stay in the conversation. So let's get into it. Calvin Kattar took on Josh Emmett his last fight. What a fight. Violent, technical chess match. In the first round, he gets pressed with the 1-2, but then he circles out and he feints jabs and 1-2s at range, but then he skirts the fence and he cuts him off, but he gets cut off and he eats some hooks from Emmett, like right at the end there. Then in the second round, he slips the jabs and he lands overhand in the pocket, then he'll circle out, but then he gets pushed back with a double jab and then a straight right, but then he eats some body hooks and hooks to the head there. But then, like, throughout this fight, Kattar's trying to establish that jab, and then early on he's like kind of missing them, but then as the fight goes on, he's able to land more. But you know, he doesn't land like all of them, but you know, Emmett did a good job of slipping a lot of them. Then in the third round, he backs up, he pumps some jabs, but he kind of misses some of them, and then he gets pressed, but he eats an overhand right, and then he gets pressed with a jab and an uppercut, but then he eats an overhand, and he gets pushed back, but then he gets pressed with some body hooks, and then Emmett, he would, like, every time he hit Kattar, it seemed like he, like, physically moved him backward. I mean, Emmett hits hard. Then in the fourth round, he misses some jabs, but then he eats a hook to the body and then a right hook to the head off of his cross. Then he lands a back elbow, and then he rocks him with the 1-2. So he had a couple big moments in his fight. Then he gets pressed with some hooks, and he blocks most of them, and he's able to circle out. Then in the 5th round, he eats a 1-2 off of his jab, but then he misses the uppercut and eats a right cross, but then he's able to back up and land some jabs, but then he gets pressed and eats some overhands, but then he starts circling and just doesn't want to stay there and bang with Josh Emmett. So, you know, good performance. Watching it back, I can see how you give it to Josh Emmett, but, you know, it really should have been a draw, something like that. But then Arnold Allen took on Dan Hooker, his last fight. Dan Hooker dropping from 155 to 145. In the first round, he circles in and out, lands some leg kicks, then he sidesteps, lands a jab, and lands a straight flurry, and then some hooks inside the pocket. But then he gets dropped with the counter right. But he literally dropped the one knee, gets right back up. But then he swarms him, goes after it, and then he shoots to the fence. But then he gets back to space. Then he lands a 1-2 on him. Then he lands a lead right hook. He slips a jab, lands a 1-2 head kick, and then a hook flurry, and then just gets a TKO standing. So, you know, it was a fun gunfight, but he did take some damage there. So, and then before that, he took on Sadiq Youssef. This was a little while ago. In the first round, he just kind of bounces in and out, and then he gets a double off of Sadiq's kick, and then he lands a leg kick, but then he lands a uppercut to the body. Then he lands a right cross in the pocket, and then he starts establishing some jabs at range. Then he lands a step in left cross, but then he drops him with the left cross inside the clinch. But then he misses a left, and he gets the double. But he's able to keep the clinch. Can't really keep him down, but he just keeps that body lock and just tries to score some points with the judges. So, bit of a tactician. Then in the second round, he circles out of the hook range, but then he eats some straights off the fence, and then he gets cut off. Then he gets cut off and pressed with some jabs, but then he rocks him with the head kick at range, and it was like a delayed reaction, like it was a big head kick. And then he tries to take us back, but then he clinches and just kind of clinches him. Sadiq's like kind of hip to it, but you know, tries to go around, spin around on the mat, but you know, Sadiq's a tough mother effer. Then in the third round, he gets pressed and clinched, but then he shoots a blast double, but then it gets stuffed. Then he eats some straights on the fence, and then he starts countering less, and then he starts clinching more, and then he gets reversed into clinch position. But then toward the end of the round, he clinches, and he's not really doing much. He's just trying to hold that clinch position because he knows he has the first 2 rounds. So, you know, kind of gets tired, kind of falls off, but you know, good win for him. Sadiq's very tough. Arnold Allen minus 115, Calvin Kattar minus 105. Your guess is as good as mine. I've been going back and forth all day. I'm just going to look at like the intangibles and like the storyline of this because it's so close. I'm going to go with Arnold Allen. I just think people are be like, oh, he can't go 3 rounds. Well, I think Arnold Allen is just going to surprise people. That happens sometimes with these people that don't go 5 rounds. I think Kattar might be a little too tentative. I think Allen is going to be able to like sidestep some of the jabs, land a cross, land something big, maybe land a head kick. Kattar doesn't throw too many kicks. But the wrestling, they both have decent wrestling, so it might cancel each other out. Or Arnold might be able to catch him whenever Calvin's coming in. Calvin might get a little desperate as the fight goes on. Now, Arnold probably will get tired in rounds 4 and 5, but if he can just be tactical and get those clinches in those spots and like pick his rests and just kind of try to score points, maybe land some shots in the clinch, I think he can get it done. But, you know, if Calvin Kattar wins, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm going to go with Arnold Allen here. Why not? All right, everyone. Thanks for rocking with me. I appreciate it. Finally, a decent weekend last weekend. This one only got 11 fights, so we got to hit that hard. But I did all my research, got a couple underdogs, and, you know, some decent lines here, so I feel good about it. Check the bio, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all that stuff. Leave a comment. Ask me some questions. You know, I'm here for it. Like, share, subscribe. You know, show some other people if they want to maybe make some money, maybe make $1 or something like that. You know, it's still profit. Appreciate it, everyone. Let's see some violence. Let's see some upsets. And let's see some profits. Good luck, everyone.